If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome to yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout, and I'm so glad that you could join us today on another episode of yWrite. You know, we all have stories within us, and so many times we have thought to ourselves, I should write that down. I want to preserve that memory or that explore that fantasy story, or even write that recipe down for my grandchildren. And I know that you've thought that too. So that's why you're tuned into yWrite today, because we want to help you to get that story out of you. Stories can be inspirational, stories can be educational, and stories can be and entertaining. So I really hope that you're going to enjoy this episode of yWrite so that you can find out exactly what makes a writer write and how that we can find support systems. So again, thank you for joining our episode of yWrite, and I have a wonderful guest that I want to introduce. This is a woman that I've met last summer for the very first time, and you know, such an impactful event happened to me last summer. And that was when I attended my very first week-long writers conference. And it was at the International Women's Writers Guild Conference at Endicott College. And it was an enlightening week, to say the least about it. And today I have with me the president of the board of directors of the International Women's Writers Guild, which I often will refer to as the IWWG in this episode. But this president, Dr. Christie Cruise, she's a poet, she's an essayist, and she's an amateur photographer. So she says, I think it's a little bit better than that. She's an educator with over 20 years of experience in higher education. And recently, she just moved from Illinois to Arizona, which is why we are doing this episode of yWrite as a Zoom, because it's a little time zones. We're three hours apart. So it's really great that she can be here today. So I'd like to introduce to you the president of the board of directors of the International Women's Writers Guild, Dr. Christie Cruise. Hi, Christie.
Thank you. Hi, Angela. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. You and I connected last year at the conference, and that was when you told me that you were going to be the new president.
Yes.
And one of the things we had in common was both of us were attending this conference for the first time in person.
Yes. Yes. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I walked away going, I want to get more involved. And you walked away and you did get more involved. So thank you for taking
already. No problem. I had already been a part of the board of directors for about a year and a half. And as our old president was stepping down because she was timing out, she was working with all of the board members at the time to see who would be interested in serving in the position as president of the board. And so she tapped me for that role. And initially I said no, because I was fairly new to the organization and fairly new to the board. And I had only joined the organization in 2019. And although I was active in the organization, I was still learning and figuring things out. But she and some of the other members of the organization encouraged me and told me, you have what it takes to do this role. And, when you have people who support you and are encouraging you, it's harder to say no. And I figured they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so I decided to take on the challenge.
And, that's a perfect example of what the IWWG is having other people to help push you and believe in you. Before we get any further, I want to tell our guests more about what this International Women's Writers Guild is. So do you want to explain it a little bit to the audience?
Sure. So the International Women's Writing Guild was founded in 1976. Was founded as an organization really to support women writers at any stage in the writing process, writing in any genre, and not necessarily writing for publication, but writing for healing, if publication was something that women were interested in, or just writing because it was a way for them to express themselves. And so the organization over the past years has continued to grow and to flourish. And so we are this is, I believe, the 40th conference that we'll be having. I do believe it's, if my math is serving me correctly. This is because of COVID, there were a couple of years where we didn't have the conference. And then there was a couple years, I believe, in the past where for logistic purposes and some other changes within the organization, there wasn't a conference. But we were really excited to be able to host the conference again last year after not having the conference in person for a few years because of COVID. So it was my first time going because I joined in 2019. And so for 2020 and 2021, there was the online conference. And so being able to go in person was super exciting for me, meeting some wonderful women, meeting people in person that I've seen on Zoom and just hadn't had a chance to meet in person. So I think that was the best part, was being able to physically be in the space. I mean, it's great to be, to be able to connect with people online, whether it be social media, Zoom, other platforms, but there's something to be said about personal interaction and personal connection. And so that was it was a wonderful time.
100%. And, I personally, joined the IWWG right around 2020, and I had never heard of them. So I'm hoping that this show will share with other people about it, because it was, it's a great secret that needs to be out there.
It is.
And for me, the best thing about the pandemic, that silver lining, is that I was able to find organizations like this IWWG, because International Women's Writers Guild, we're offering a lot of online writing programs, and a lot of them were free. I mean,
Yes.
whether it was and still to this day, there's still like the Friday free writes, where you just RSVP through an email, you get your Zoom link, and then you're joined with all these other writers from all over the world.
Yes.
And we did some COVID writing exercises, like just look out your window and tell me what you see, type 15-minute prompts. And getting that window view when people were brave enough to share through the Zoom, of like, a woman in Switzerland sharing what she sees during COVID, someone in Australia
Yes.
sharing what she sees in California. And it really showed the humanity that we're all the same. Doesn't matter
Yes.
where we live, geography.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The free writes were amazing. And we got a lot of feedback from women saying how the Friday free writes was really a lifesaver for them and a lifeline, because without those free online programs, they really felt disconnected from the rest of the world. And so we generally don't have the Friday free writes that often, but because of the pandemic, they were pretty much weekly.
They were very often then,
because the women requested them.
Yeah. And it really was a great introduction for me to say, I can join this just to see what it's like, because, hearing International Women's Writers Guild, like, who am I to join that? I'm a florist in Massachusetts. Like, I am in my flower shop designing. And then, when you had, special instructors on, or, who are talking about their story, or sharing a lesson about writing, I could turn my computer on and watch that. And of course, being on Zoom, first couple times, of course, you don't turn your camera on, you're a little shy, you're keeping yourself muted, but you're still learning about the community. And then, it's a matter of if you want to participate or not. And it was a great way for me to, kind of get my feet wet in some different groups to say, what do they do? What is this? And not be so intimidated by even like the title, it's like International Women's Writers Guild of, the world, not just of your community. And It made my community become the world, which I love.
And that's the beautiful thing about it, is that your writing community is the world, and you see how while it's large, it's small because we were all in that space. We were all on Zoom together. We were sharing our fears, we were sharing our excitements and our hopes. And so that's one of the things that I loved about the Friday Free Writes. And then we also had the open mics as well. And so it was an opportunity, again, another free event that was every 2 weeks, an opportunity for women to share their writing. We would have an author to come do a reading from their either upcoming book or a book that had just been released. After the author had done their reading and there was question and answer, then we opened it up for women to share their work that they had been working on. Again, a wonderful opportunity for women to share, to get to know each other, and to put their work out there. And the women love it.
I mean, Leslie, and I may say her last name wrong, Newstead.
Yes, that's correct.
Leslie Newstead, she even hosted some really great classes where you were learning, processes to write, and then doing breakout and having Friday night social hours, cocktails and dancing and stuff. And it was really fun. I know June Gould and Tanya Kohong have recently just had some programs that people could sign up, and the costs were minimal. I think, $40, or I'm not positive, but it's like you're coming online for, 2-3 hour class. And I mean, they really not only teach you and guide you in your writing, but there's like this portal that just opens up when you start writing with them.
Yes. And like you said, we're very intentional about making sure that our workshops are accessible, and that they are available to women around the world, no matter what your socioeconomic status is. And so we do offer workshops at a fairly low cost. If you're a member, they're even cheaper. And so we do want to make sure that women have access to the workshops, which is why we have the free writes, the free open mics. And then sometimes we'll have, like, March, for Women's History Month and International Women's Day, all of the programs in March, you could give as little as a $5 donation, and you can go to any of the programs that we offered in March. And so we do things like that because we want to make sure that women have access to the resources that they need to be able to grow wherever they are in their writing journey.
Yeah. I enjoyed, like, I belong to some local writers groups. So, again, it's in person except during COVID, but, even joining this group and being able to share like a small piece that I've written to get a little bit of feedback, to find out, like, does it resonate with someone? Does it seem interesting? Things like that. It's been, very helpful and encouraging for me. And as you said in the beginning, like, to be around people who can encourage, what you're doing and guide you is so important.
Because writing is such a intimate process, right? And so to put your writing out there to people is scary. And I love that we have this community of women who make it so easy for you to be vulnerable in that way and to put your writing out there, and who give you feedback in such a kind way. And so that's one of the things that I love about it, is that we encourage you to be vulnerable, and then we love on you when you are vulnerable and you put your work out there.
Yeah, I mean, it took a little while for me to get that vulnerability, get past it. And, I mean, I'll just give one example. I did one write, and I, had shared something I wrote right then. And I had a member reach out to me through the chat room and said, can you send me a copy of that? Wow, sure. Of course, a little like, okay, it's my work, what happens? But, I emailed her with her email, and then she emailed me back because she noticed I was in Agawam, Massachusetts. At the bottom of my email, it said, and I was a florist, and it turned out her daughter-in-law lived in the next town. And she was like, oh, I wanted to send flowers to her. Can you do that? And, it's like the networking, it was like a little magical, and at the same time, in that same class, and this is where I say, like, portals start to open. Linda Bergman happened to be in that class that day, and she was just taking it. And I happened to, Google her, because, you get to do things like that when you're on a Zoom. You're like, oh, who are these people? And, I saw that she did offer writing programs through the IWWG for screenwriting. And I was working on a screenplay for my third book, April Rain. So I reached out to her and said, when is your next class? And I signed up and I worked with her. And I mean, it was such a positive experience. And when conference was coming to Endicott College in 2022, I was like, I have to go to this. And Linda reached out and she was like, are you going? And I'm like, oh my God, I just said I have to go to this. I have to find a way to go. I have to. And she's flying in from California, and here we've only talked on the phone or through Zoom. So, I mean, I get to meet her in person, and all of these people I've seen online. And I mean, I have really built some really wonderful friendships from that 5-day conference that I am,
Yes.
you just find friends that you resonate with, and it's really wonderful.
It's amazing. It was amazing. And I was really excited to go, and so glad that I got a chance to go. Looking forward to the conference this year as well.
Yeah. So now this year it is in Philadelphia.
It is in Philadelphia, so we're really excited to be at a new venue, to be at Chestnut Hill College right outside of Philadelphia. So Philadelphia is just this cultural space with so much going on, so many artists, different types of artists, visual artists, performing artists. And so we're very grateful to be able to be in that space and to have some of the Philadelphia artists to be participating in the conference. So we're excited to bring a lot of the local artists to the conference this year.
Yeah, and I noticed that like last year with it being in Massachusetts, there was, obviously a lot more of mass New England residents who were able to travel in. And then of course you had many who flew into this conference. So now, and you had offered things on Zoom at the conference. So if people couldn't attend in person, there was still a way for them to participate a little bit, not being in person at the conference. And this summer, being in Philadelphia, where there's even more writers in that area, to have them be able to come in person, it's just so great that it does, travel around the country, so that everybody
Yes.
can have an opportunity to attend it, whether they want to fly there or drive there, or if it's right in their backyard.
Yes. And, this year we still will have a small virtual track. And so if individuals, for whatever reason, aren't able to come to the conference, it's not a full virtual track, but they will be able to get a good mix of the different genres and be able to do that online. And then, we are a New England founded organization. The organization was founded in New York. And so we have traditionally stayed in the East Coast area. I'm hoping that eventually, as we continue to grow, we'll start to move a little west, and be able to offer the conference in different places. But right now, our largest base is in New England and out east. I love going out east to the East Coast, and so excited to be in Philly and to explore and enjoy all that Philly has to offer for us.
Yeah, and I looked up the college. And Chestnut Hill College looks like a castle.
It's
mean,
a beautiful, yeah.
It's what
We're
a
really
beautiful
excited.
venue. It just
Yes.
looks amazing. And you're gonna have 70 different workshops, open mics, classes. I mean, there's so many
Yes.
different things to participate in.
Yes. So we'll have poetry, we'll have fiction, we'll have nonfiction, we'll have screenwriting. We will have we had a young writers track for the first time last year. And so we'll still have some things that are geared towards young writers, but that's open to everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have over 70 workshops. We'll have some that are more intensive that you can attend throughout the entirety of the conference. And then we'll have some that are just one-off workshops that you can attend. And so we have a little something for everybody. If you want to come for a day, you can register and come for a day. If you want to stay the entire time, we love to have you the entire time. This year, the conference is July 20th through July 24th.
So July 20th through July 24th, 2023 at Chestnut Hill College.
Yes.
Yeah, last year I did meet a few, day people who came in just for the day, and it was great because, we're having, lunch and we get to talk, and there's some breaks in between for networking and really getting to know people. But with looking at the program, like, that you put out there, what I loved is that there was enough time to really kind of do everything.
Yes.
Because you would offer some programs like, every day, sometimes at the same time. So if you knew you only wanted to do that, you could. But, I could mix and match everything because, of course, I, wanted to check everything out.
Yes.
And I loved, I think I had one class that I cried in because I said, I don't like writing about all these bad things in the world. And I was so grateful for the writers who were in that group who were passionate to do it, and it really showed there's just, something for everyone, and
there is something for everyone.
and
Literally,
exploring how you're going to tell your story really does, it really is helpful to have these different avenues, because sometimes a story you think is going to be a novel and it turns out to be a poem or a song. So,
yes.
All of those groups are there. So I loved that.
Yes. And I love that we have open mics every night. So we give people an opportunity while they're working on their craft, that then they get to share it when they're ready. And the open mics are always such a hit. Everybody, they wait for us to put out the sign-up sheet for the open mic. So I love how excited people are about sharing. I wasn't brave enough to sign up for an open mic last year, but I did attend, and and so I love the open mics. I love the opportunity that we give for people to write and then also to share.
Yeah, and I definitely saw that some of the people writing, like, they were a little hesitant, but of course, once you wrote your name on it, it was like, okay, now you have this goal, and it was a really great goal, and once they did it, they loved it, so it really was great. And I love listening to all of the stories and all of the different writers, because you never knew who was getting up to the mic and what they were going to be, sharing.
Right. And the open mics weren't just for poetry. You could share a piece of a longer story, a piece of an essay, a piece of a novel, a piece of a memoir. Everybody, you have a certain time period to share, like 3 minutes. And so it didn't just have to be poetry. You could share whatever it was that you were working on.
Yeah. I know you also offered special, very intensive labs. I had a friend who went into the intensive, like, rewrite novel lab. So you showed up with a written manuscript, and I think it was limited to maybe 8 to 12 people. And they really were able to focus 3 hours a day on getting that done. I personally signed up for the playwriting lab with Kelly Dumarn. Wow, what a fabulous director she is. And, I showed up and I ended up, having my play COVID Times done. It wasn't something I went in thinking I was going to do. I had something else in mind, but, once you're in that surrounding, you're just moved to say, okay, yes, I can do this, and it's really powerful to see, your work performed in a way, because you're getting all the voices out of your head, and you get to see them perform. And it was like, wow. So I really recommend, if someone's interested in doing an intensive, whether they're working on a novel, I think there was one other one too. I can't remember what it was. I think there were 3, but
there's usually an intensive for memoir. There's usually an intensive for novel writing. There's usually we do have an intensive as well if you're working on poetry. So we do try to offer a variety of different intensive sessions. Those sessions generally you do have to sign up for in advance.
And they fill up quick.
And then they're limited to a group of people, and then you have those sessions every day that you're there for the conference. So they're usually at a certain time, but that also gives you time to go to other sessions as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I did that 3 hours every day, but I still was able to take a good 2 or 3 kind of, I'll call them classes every day to participate, and, learning different ways to write poetry. And I took one class, and I remember she was writing this poetry kind of out of her grocery list. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So, participating with that, and then learning what a haiku is, because, as they're telling you the technical names, I'm going, oh, I do that all the time. I had no idea what that was called. So it was very educational. So obviously, I'm a big fan of the Writers Conference. So I hope everybody in Philadelphia, if you're watching this, if you're around Philadelphia or wherever you are in the world, I hope you get to Philadelphia for June 20th to 24th. And every summer, provided no pandemics, but
provided no pandemics. Yes. Every summer we have the conference, provided there's no pandemics. They're usually out east, but hopefully we'll be moving them, Midwest and then eventually west. But right now we're just really excited to be in Philly, and to have the energy of Philadelphia. And so, if you are in Philly, if you're in Massachusetts, if you're in any of the surrounding areas, especially if it's drivable, come on out and join us. If you're able to fly out, you will not be disappointed. Fly out, join us. It is one of the one of the best conferences, and I've been to conferences in my over 20 years of being in higher education. This is one of the best conferences I've ever attended.
It's
and
very
not just saying
rewarding.
that because I'm president of the board either, but it's one of the best conferences I've attended.
Well, I'm just a member, and I'm telling you, it's one of the best.
Yes,
and I have attended a few others, but not as long as this one or as intensive as this one. And, you know, the women there are so welcoming. It really is that really great community to encourage one another and, you know, just share.
Yeah, you talk about women supporting women, women supporting each other. You see a great example of that at the conference.
Now, but to find out more information, they can go to www.iwwg.org. Okay.
O-R-G.
So I'll put that up on the screen. The conference is in Philadelphia. This year, the theme is writing for equity and inclusion.
Yes.
I like
and
that.
So we're really excited about our conference theme. There has been so much going on in our world. So many women have been fearful of writing, depending on what's going on in their countries. So many people have felt as though their voices have been silenced. And so we're really excited to be able to provide this space for women to be able to write, to feel like their voices will be heard, to know that they are in a space where they will be supported and accepted. And no matter what your writing level is, no matter where you are, no matter what your social group membership is, identity, that there is a place for you in IWWG. And so that is where we're going with the theme. We couldn't be in a better place when you talk about equity and inclusion than Philadelphia, and the writing and the arts and the culture that is there. We can't think of a better place to have that theme and to be located than Philadelphia.
All right, so everyone go over to IWWG.org and check it out for more information, and even to get information on joining the online programs and sign up for their emails, become a member. And I'm sure there's a link on there if they want to get in touch with you or to get more information.
Yes, there's a link on there. It's writers at IWWG.org. We have an amazing executive director, Michelle Miller. And so you can also reach out to Michelle Miller if you have additional questions, but you can get in touch with any of us on the website or at writers@iwwg.org.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And Michelle, I did reach out to her when I was signing up, and she's very, very helpful and very accessible. So that's great. Yes. Well, I want to thank you so much, Christie, for coming on today and sharing your experience with the IWWG, explaining what the IWWG is, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more members to join the IWWG.
I hope so. Thank you.
There's writers out there like you and I who don't know about these things. So
yes. And I appreciate you having this platform and inviting me to be a part of a platform to share the information with your listeners. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And I want to thank Studio 954 for making this possible, and for our sponsor, Complete Restoration Solutions, for also giving us the opportunity to present the show yWrite to you. And especially I want to thank you, the audience, for tuning in to listen to the wonderful conversations that we have here on yWrite. So at this part of the program, you know, I like to provide a prompt for you to sit down to write. So after the show is over, pick up a pen, maybe set your phone timer or timer for 10 minutes and just start writing. So pick up your pen. And today I want you to do this prompt. You don't have to, of course, but you know, we want to get your pens writing. So let's think about being at a castle, going to a castle, going to a conference, going to a castle, and you're sitting in the castle looking out the window and you're writing, today I heard from this instructor this amazing new technique. And tell us what it is that you've learned. Tell us something that you've learned today while being at this castle. Thank you so much for joining me on yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout. Until next time.